Hello, this is Brian Rezny, President of Rezny Wealth Management, bringing an important update about the economy and the investment markets. Well, the G7 meeting of 7 leading economies around the world finalized their meeting yesterday. A lot of question and answer with our current President Trump. It's very interesting. Of course, one of the big things that came up was trade. And one of the things that continues to come up, it seems, daily is trade. And we really need to work on a fair trade deal with China. Last week we had the market sell off a little bit. It was down like 1% for the week. Started off this week again good. Generally speaking, trade is going to be in the limelight until there's actually a deal with China. I think personally it's going to take a while to do. China is an unfair player, and they've been this way for decades and decades. Past administrations never dealt with it, and we have a president actually that's hitting this head on. Not only China, but I've talked about this before, there's other countries around the world that do unfair trade practices, which we are currently working on. But what's interesting with the G7, a group of countries that meet on an annual basis, I think finally they will be getting together more so in order to work with the U.S. against China in their unfair trade practices. Remember, we're the biggest consumer GDP grower and GDP period in the world next to China. And even with the G7 countries, I mean, it's a small percentage of really what we produce ourselves. But if you have allies that all come together and work on fair trade practices, it's only good for the U.S. economy and also for them. So ultimately, we see this will be resolved some form or fashion. It could take another month. It could take another 2 or 3 years. It really is hard to tell at this particular time. But there's always this constant rhetoric back and forth. And I know talking to a lot of my clients, everybody's getting sick of politics because that's all that you hear about 24/7. But trade is fair. In the U.S., it will be good for our U.S. economy. There's a lot of talk about recessions from the big brokerage houses again. Remember, folks, we do a lot of research on recessions. The U.S. is not in a recession. We are not headed currently for recession. I may change that viewpoint 3 months from now or 3 years from now or somewhere in between, but we're not in a recession. The economy is actually doing quite well, and look at the numbers that have come out again last week show that. But for some reason, the brokerage houses, banks, and insurance companies, and a lot of the commentators like to hype this kind of information up because it gets investors nervous and it gets people to do stuff they shouldn't be doing with their money, which ultimately benefits Wall Street. We're a money manager. We're not Wall Street. So again, we push that noise aside. We've been right the last 4 or 5 years. Every single year, Wall Street kept calling for recession that year. We said no. And again, we were right. I firmly believe we'll be right again. But if we do get to the point where there's going to be a rollover going into a recession, we will get more defensive, of course, as we've talked before. If you have any questions about your portfolio, any concerns in general, please call the office. We'd love to hear from you. Send us an email, what have you. Come in for a review. But make sure you have yourself a safe summer. I know we're coming to the end of summer. Winter's coming, of course. Winter's going to be gorgeous in Florida as usual. We always appreciate your business. And we appreciate your trust. And as always, if you have friends or family that need a financial money manager, please refer them to us. We do appreciate your referrals always. Have a safe and profitable day.